Morning viewers, what are we doing this morning, darling?
We're BarberVaxing some 650 lambs.
Righto, and I'll go and do a worm sample on those 2 mobs of ewes.
Yes.
And we might even watch the concrete pour at the shed, eh?
Yep, getting exciting.
They're all very exciting.
Getting to the pointy end.
Right, let's go.
See ya.
These are the 4 new rams we bought the other day. They're still very young, but they're quite nice rams.
Haven't buddied up with our other mob yet.
No, they haven't. So they're coming together. They're scattered all over this paddock, and some have jumped through the fence into the next paddock. Oh dear, oh dear. Anyway, they're coming together now, so it's good. A lot of long grass in this paddock, but they have been everywhere, which is quite amazing. Sometimes there's a lot of long grass, they tend to park up and don't do so well, but it looks like they've been going pretty well. Pretty happy with that. The grass is that thick here that the sheep can't walk through it. She says it's all too hard, that ewe. Grass is just too thick for them to walk through. They're nice and relaxed at the moment, these sheep, which is really good. They're in good order. Very good to see. Only a very small tail on them. But still not too bad. So what we're doing today is vaccinating with BarberVax. This is their 4th BarberVax shot. We're very pleased with them. They're in pretty good order. There's the odd runt like that bloke there, but aside from that, these are growing out pretty well. And the wool that seemed to have a fair bit of dermatitis before doesn't seem to be quite so bad now, so they must be growing out of that a little bit, which is good to see. Anyway, I'll make them pack up if I do too much of this, so I better not get in the road too much. So you can probably call Barber's pole worm the silent killer. What happens is that the eggs are laid out in the dung and the larvae hatch out on the pasture, and in the right conditions the larvae can stay on the pasture for about 6 months before they die. And then of course the sheep come along and they graze and they pick up the larvae, and it grows into a mature worm inside the animal, and it can fairly quickly kill the animal with enough Barber's pole. The numbers can explode, so they go from, you know, virtually no worms to 2 weeks later and you've got dead sheep. So like I said, it's a silent killer. It's by far and away our biggest animal health issue, as I might have mentioned before. So while Sarah's vaccinating the lambs, I've come up here to get a worm sample from the ewes that are in this paddock here. They're hiding in the bush here somewhere, not quite sure exactly where. There's a couple of kangaroos over there. I don't think you can see them in... well, here they come. They might... Sit down, Pud. Sit down, Pud. Here come a couple of kangaroos. Oh, that's nice. Don't know how well you can see those. There we are. Look at that. Lovely. There's a joey in the pouch of the one. Oh, there's 2 joeys in those pouches. Oh, here's some more here. Look at these. Just having a look at us. Off they go. So somewhere in this paddock, probably over there on the sheep camp, are these ewes. I just need to get a worm sample, and I also need to just make sure there's no fly strike or anything nasty like that. So it's now the middle of February and they've had about a month off their lambs, and although I can't put my hands on them and absolutely check the condition score, they certainly look pretty good from a distance here. No doubt about that. They're looking pretty well. By and large, they've recovered quite nicely from lambing. Little patch of mushrooms. Don't think you'd want to eat that variety. I don't think that'd be too good for you. So this paddock's mostly native vegetation, and I think there was probably some clearing of the trees in the 1960s through here, but we've owned the place for a quarter of a century and we haven't tried to thin any trees out or anything like that. We've just let it regrow in here. and you still get quite good pasture in here, so it's pretty good balance of things, trees and pasture. It's pretty skinny soil through here, so it's not the best soil. So we find that after shearing or at other times when the weather's a bit how you're going, this paddock provides pretty good shelter. There's a reasonable body of feed usually in here, plus the warmth from the trees is good shelter. So it's a very useful paddock. There's about 150 acres in it. It might be sensible to thin some of those trees out in a copse like that just in front of us there, but we haven't done so far. Not quite sure what the best approach there would be. Some of this stringy bark makes quite good millable timber, so as you can see the trunks do tend to grow quite straight and without too many limbs on the trunk itself, especially if there's a bit of competition like in that copse in front of me. In the middle of that copse you can see a dead tree that died in the drought. Over there were some trees that had just died naturally prior to the drought. I don't know how well you can see, but in front of me there's a lot of trees that died in the drought or got really stressed in the drought. Some are coming back, but there's a lot of dead ones in amongst all of that as well. It's probably a bit hard to see from this distance, but they're in there. The trees further away are actually box trees, so there's quite a variety of trees in here as well. Anyway, I hope that gives you a bit of an idea of some of this backcountry of ours. This is a bit closer up to those box trees I was telling you about. So there's good standard box trees through here. And right now there's quite a lot of flower in those gum trees up there, and I don't know if you can hear it on the camera, but there's a lot of bee activity at the moment. And just a minute ago there was a kookaburra there somewhere. I don't know if the camera will be picking up those bee sounds. So it's good to see the ecosystem's pretty healthy at the moment. A lot of grass growing in there, so there's enough light getting in there to get pasture in there as well. Not that that's, you know, the world's best pasture, but it's still good. It's a pretty good office this. You wouldn't swap it for quids, or I wouldn't anyway. Okay, so we've checked so we've got to do a worm count on these ewes as well. Just make sure there's no fly strike in here, so we'll get on with that. They all look pretty good from here. They're all moving pretty well. They're not bad, but they're not super good, this mob. Still got a bit of work to recover. Still, they're only a month off weaning. There's one old girl on the left hand side there that's limping a bit. Hello, and there's a lamb in there. Whoops. So while I've been goofing off collecting those worm samples, Sarah's been working away through these sheep, vaccinating away. Gee, they're looking good, these lambs. Very pleased with them. But during my lifetime there's been quite a number of generations of drenches. I mean, when I was a kid, things like thibenzole and ripicol and nilworm were the drenches that were being used. But over time the barber's pole worm became resistant to those, because you just have to get a few mutants that are resistant to the drench, and then they become the dominant worm, and they breed up, and you've got drench resistance. So the next generation were things like cydectin and avamectin and stuff like that, and that worked pretty well for a long period of time. And then there was the Zolvix and the StarTech drenches are the most recent ones. But the point I'm trying to make is that drench resistance is always going to be a problem. Eventually it's going to happen. So in order to minimise the drench resistance, what you have to do is rotate your drenches around, and you also have to be strategic about your use of pastures. So you don't want to be putting your sheep back onto pastures that are contaminated. You want to rotate your drenches, so you don't want to keep using the same drench all the time. And the other important thing is to know what your worm burden is, so that you're not drenching when you don't need to. That's besides being a complete waste of money, it doesn't help your drench resistance in the long term. But we're assured that because of the pathway that BarberVax operates on, resistance isn't going to be a problem with it. Well, we'll have to see about that. The other good thing about BarberVax is that there's no withholding period. Fortunately, during the winter, Barber's pole's not a problem for us, so you get a bit of a spell from it then. And the other thing is it mainly impacts the lambing ewes. They're obviously under a lot more stress, and also the younger lambs, especially the weaned lambs. With older dry sheep like wethers, you can often go quite a long period without having to dose them. And in fact, we've got wethers up on the other block that we haven't had to treat for worms for over 12 months now. Admittedly, that's with good seasonal conditions and with not much grazing pressure on the paddock, so that makes it a lot easier to manage the worm burden. Anyway, I hope that gives you a bit of an idea with some of the issues around the Barber's pole worms. We also do get occasionally from time to time, more on the other block than here, some problem with some of the other worms, the other roundworms, but by and large that's controllable and not a huge problem for us. So even though we're only a fairly small place, it took us quite a while to muster them this morning, and that was because of the long grass. So they were hiding all over, scattered all over the paddock in the long grass, a bit hard to see. And also they jumped the fence into another paddock, so they were in two paddocks, which was a bit of a pain in the neck. But anyway, so it's taken us a bit longer, and the day's warmed up quite a bit. It's supposed to be 28 degrees today. It'll be getting pretty close to that by now. There was a bit of a cool breeze earlier, but it's died down a bit now. So anyway, it's all good. We're having a lovely day out in the office. So even though it was a long muster, it's very easy. We're just letting them out the gate and into the paddock next to the yards, so we don't have to worry about putting them away. That's quite easy to do. Good pasture in here, red clover in there, it's all gone to seed. That's really good. Be a nice seed bank for next year. Lovely.
That's the last race. Oh, hang on, it's the last race. Oh no, it's the last race.
So this is the last race. Is this the last race, darling?
I think it's the last race.
This is the last race. And Sarah's very happy about that. All right. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.
Yes.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching.